opposition. Nice to meet you. Lauren Steiner.
How are you? Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I was lead organizer of Los Angeles for Bernie back in 2015, 2016. Cool. And I was #1 delegate in CD 33. Perfect. And now I'm doing the robust opposition.
All right. Nice.
And we want to welcome you to be the state field director. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Perfect. Just about my work history and stuff.
Yeah.
So I started doing political field work back in 2009 up in east part of Sacramento. And then we developed a voter registration program that was a door-to-door voter registration program, getting Democrats registered to vote. So we did that in the East Bay, Sacramento, San Diego in 2010. Started building that up farther and farther every election year. 2012, 2014, 2016, and 2018. And then during the odd years, I worked for the Speaker's office up in Sacramento, doing that kind of work, and also worked as a district director in Inland Empire too. So done a lot of campaigns on the Assembly Dem side. That's pretty much where I come from.
Okay, now I got to put you on the spot here. Were you for Bernie in 2016?
Yeah, I actually was for Bernie in 2016, although it wasn't the most popular opinion. But I was. So. And so when I had the opportunity to work on this campaign, for me, it's about finishing something. I'm all about winning. And to have the opportunity to maybe make it happen this year, that's why I'm here. So it's pretty exciting to be part of it. For sure.
Great.
Yeah.
Now let me talk to you about something I talked to Rafa about before this meeting. So the field campaign is where you go knocking on doors, we call canvassing. When we did it last time, they were giving us likely Democratic voters and telling us to pass by the homes of people that weren't likely Democratic voters, but we all had the intuition that Bernie supporters were not going to come from the likely Democratic voters. Those were going to be the Hillary voters, and what we needed to do was expand the base. And we, in particular, had a low-income outreach program where we went to Walmart and Target and 99-cent stores because low-income people tend not to vote, but if they knew about Bernie, that he's been fighting for them for decades, I'm wondering how amenable you would be to such a program where you actually target with a sort of a rifle approach rather than a shotgun approach.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that we already have a rifle approach. We've got on our data team folks that actually our lead data person worked on the Hubble space station. We're down here where the
Griffith Observatory?
No, not there, but it's back in Maryland. And so she actually worked on that kind of stuff and doing data on that. So she's a genius. I mean, she's probably the most smart person I've ever met. And we work with all kinds of people to make sure that we are expanding our base. We're talking to over 5 million people in the state of California, so it's much wider than we're going after as well. Definitely doing a lot of work with our no party preference folks as well, because there's a lot of those folks who want to vote for Bernie, and a lot of people just like him because he's an independent thinker, and they may be registered that way too. So we're definitely, it's more of a, making sure those people who are actually voters, we're getting them out to vote. But it's a much bigger base that we're going after for sure.
Okay, so you are going after the voters, but you're also going after non-voters and expanding the base.
Yeah, definitely, and all the work that I've done has been going into underserved communities and getting those folks not only registered to vote, but also educated on the process. And what we found is that most people in those underserved communities want to vote. They just don't because they may not know how to, or someone's told them that their vote doesn't count or doesn't matter. And so that's been my life's work, and now I'm just bringing it to this campaign, and if we do that, we're going to win. So.
Let me ask you about another idea that I had. So you register people to vote, and you canvass them about Bernie. Do you keep their information so that you can contact them to make sure they actually go out to vote?
We definitely keep track of that because those folks take an extra touch to make sure that they'll actually get out to vote. So, what's nice about California was that we lean on the side of enfranchising people instead of disenfranchising for the most part. There are some counties that are a little tougher than others, but we want more people to vote. So there are things like we do a big push to get people to vote early. And, all the people who get registered to vote or vote by mail. So we can actually have a lot longer to actually get them to turn in that ballot. If they get their ballot a month before. Most of the state has gone to vote by mail too, which does help increase that turnout.
Now, I ran also with Lucy Riley. We organized ballots for Bernie because there were 2.4 million ballots that were uncounted at the night of the primary. They were provisionals and late-breaking vote-by-mails. And I was working with the national field director, Josh Phillips, at the time, and he said, what's the percentage between those two? And most of them were vote, and he said, well, We're not going to put in lawyers, because what probably is going to happen is when these ballots are counted, Bernie's going to narrow the lead from 15 points she was winning to 7 or 8 points. And they were exactly right, because what we found out was that the provisionals tended to break for Bernie, and even some of the late breaking vote by mail, because there were problems. The registration, you could register up until like a week, or maybe it was 2 weeks.
It used to be 15 days.
Yeah.
Now it's the same day you can actually register.
Yeah. Yeah, well, so that's better, because what would happen is if you say you wanted to be in no party preference, vote by mail, they would send you a ballot that wouldn't have the presidential line on it. So you would have to send a card back. That would take time. Then they would have to send you the other thing. And by then, if you were registering in the last day, you would miss the deadline.
Totally.
So I spoke with Dean Logan, because we, our ballot monitoring group, we were able to get them to enfranchise about 14,000 people who were writing in Bernie's name on not writing in, but punching his name in on a Democratic ballot instead of a Democratic crossover ballot, because they weren't instructing their poll workers to say, no, you need to ask for a Democratic crossover ballot. So our people saw, since we had this Ballots for Bernie program, that they were disenfranchised and they weren't counting their vote. And they said, wait a minute, the intent of the voter is clear. What does it matter what ballot, what ballot they? And Dean Logan agreed, and as a result, about 14,000 new votes for Bernie were gotten. So there's a lot of that kind of hanky-panky going around, telling people how to vote. What are you doing about telling people how to vote? Are you telling people they should register Democrat just so they don't have these kind of issues?
Yeah, really good question. We're definitely making a point to try to get people re-registered as Democrats, because that's the easiest way, and register as vote by mail. So if they're registered as a Democrat or vote by mail, they're going to automatically get that Dem ballot at home. Now, if they're a permanent absentee voter and they're registered to decline to state, and they already get that ballot mailed to them without, or get the decline to state information mailed out to them before saying that they want to vote in the Dem primary, then they're pretty much SOL. I mean, and so we've done a big push as far as calling millions of people who are declined to state voters, texting them. Also, we'll do a mail program and some other stuff to make sure we get them out to vote. So
and
there's a huge push for that. It's I was saying earlier, in 2016, I was actually in the Anaheim area doing voter registration, and we had so many young people who were declined to state voters because they're registered declined to state, but they're tired of both parties, or they don't know the difference between the parties, so they're registered declined to state, and they wanted to vote for Bernie, and they weren't allowed to. And we're making sure that that doesn't happen, and a big part of that is education and just letting them know what's going on, how to vote for Bernie. That's our biggest goal. This is how you vote for Bernie. The easiest way to vote for Bernie: register as a Democrat, get that ballot mailed to you, mail it in as soon as possible. Then don't worry about it.
Final question on college students, because
fun.
We know that college students are very supportive of Bernie.
For sure.
My idea is to have an organizer, and Bernie has the money to do this, to have an organizer in every campus, or at least in every community that has multiple campuses. They can go back and forth. All they need to do is tell people that Bernie is the only candidate who wants to provide free public college and university, and is going to forgive all their debt. They don't even have to talk about healthcare. I mean, of course they can, but in my mind, a student just needs to hear that, and they're with them. So what do you think about prioritizing campuses, first of all, and second of all, telling these college students that, they should register? See, here's what happens. They're voting where they go to vote, where they go to school, and they're told, no, you're registered where you live. So that's a two-part question about college students.
Yes, very good question. I'll start with this. As far as we have campus core leaders. We have over 300 of them in the state. I think that's more than the amount of campuses, because there's 114 community colleges and 20-something CSUs and 10 UCs. So we've got over 300 campus core leaders, so we're doing a big push on that on each of the campuses. And then the second part of the question was about
where they should register.
Oh yes, so that's why I was laughing, because I've done a lot of voter registration near college campuses, and they're always, hey, I'm registered at my parents' house. They may go to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, but they live in Bakersfield. And so we were trying to push them to just register where you live, because then, at your campus, because that's what you're voting on, what affects you on a daily basis, because that's where you're at daily. So hopefully we can get that message out to the students, like, hey, make sure you're registered where you're actually living at on campus, because that makes it a lot easier for you to vote. You're not going to be able to go home in March. You might not have winter break, or I'm sorry, spring break. So
Yeah.
we want to make sure that they vote
Great.
on the campuses. Very
All
important.
right.
Yeah.
So
I've had a
you
lot of
can
experience with
see
that.
we have the Bernie team. They are on it, and I have every confidence that we are going to win California. And like Bernie said, if we win California, we win the primary. And I want to let people know that somebody just tweeted me, Bernie is now leading with Biden. They're tied 19-19 in the latest Reuters Ipsos poll, with Warren farther behind at 13. So what do you think of that?
Well, I want to bring up a poll that I saw the other day that Bernie had 31% of the Latino vote, and that was pretty much Biden and Warren put together. And if you see a lot of the stuff that we've been doing, it's a big push towards the Latino and Latinx population.
Yeah, they don't like that term. It's not culturally competent.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
like a hipster came up with it or
Yes,
something.
I know. So I try to say both because, believe me, my son is half Mexican, so I say Latino or Latinx, whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So,
And didn't he get 74% of Latino votes in California?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing is his message resonates with folks. And actually, it doesn't matter, what your race is. It should resonate with everyone because it's been too long that the tables have been against us. And it's about time that the people stand up. And he's a candidate that's been consistent for over 30 years. And he's the one who's going to be fighting for us for the rest of our lives, I think. He's great. He's been doing it, and he'll continue to do it. That's why I'm working for him. So.
And on that note, I will end the stream for now. You will next see me at the Our Revolution Dance Party tonight, where I will talk to some more burners and we'll find out how their time at the convention has gone thus far. This has been Lauren Steiner for the Robust Opposition, and keep fighting.
Yes.